The continued success of Jerry Willis guitar annotation on Friday and Saturday nights at the Pirates Cove, having convinced Gary a need to ask Herb Carpenter about the prospect for an additional guitar virtuoso for the other 4 nights of the week. Unexpectedly, Herb took it upon himself. Gary and Jan were both totally surprised, anticipating a guitarist, finding the owner's quest resulting in an alto saxophonist from Kissimmee, Florida. Bob, having played alto since his school band year, and a combo in Florida, and currently sitting in with various city groups for enjoyment when approached by Herb. The pianist was curious as to how Herbie had approached him, Bob relating how this customer, having arrested several drinks, kept requesting the same song over and over, Boots Randolph's Yakety Sax. It was Herbie. Gary, finding Bob very amiable, possessing a good stage presence and pristine ownership of the sound that flowed from the E-flat sax. It was totally unexpected, the sounding of the horn outside of his Southwest 46th Terrace residence drawing his attention, Gary going to the window, curious as to who was causing the commotion. Parked at the curb was a new red 1970 Oldsmobile convertible, and sitting behind the wheel was none other than Jan Lahan. Gary, approaching, noticing the wide grin on Jan's face, without hesitation she blurted out, the car was her OU graduation present from her dad. Having just picked it up and wanted to share it with someone, and it seemed you were the only person that might be home. It was a hot afternoon and a first time the pianist had ever cruised around Oklahoma City in a convertible with the top down and the air conditioning running. But apparently it made the college graduate happy. It wasn't unusual that on occasion Jan would call inviting Gary and Kay to dine with her at the Steak and Ale, or when the Sportsman Club on Northwest 39th Street opened their facility to the public. It was front and center for the three. The most unusual invitation was to one of Oklahoma City's most little-known restaurants, the Haunted House. The only means to find its non-publicized location was to call and make a reservation. It had been reputed that a murder had been committed in this large mansion, now fashioned as an upscale dining facility with valet parking. The gabled flagstone building, built in 1935 by automobile dealer Martin Carricker, featured flashy amenities for its time, sporting a wet bar in the basement, a gas fireplace and a 3-car garage. In 1963, the 74-year-old Carricker allegedly was shot in the head by his stepdaughter and 2 handymen. Before his stepdaughter was tried for the murder, her mother died, and then after her acquittal, she died of an apparent drug overdose. Gary, discovering the location was supposed to be on Northeast 68th, but it ended just east of North Kelly, then resumed 1.5 miles further east in a wilderness section off of Miramar Boulevard, 68th, coming to a dead end at the haunted house. If the entry road was any hint of what was in store for dining, there was no doubt it would be a fulfilling experience. The addition of the Floridian sax player was concurrent with Jerry's guitar on Friday and Saturday nights, the club now sponsoring a trio through the week, and a quartet testing the weekend. Jan Lahan's 2 years music interest at the Cove was beginning to wane. Her studies at Oklahoma University were accomplished, and a law degree was her next ambition. A possible marriage also was on the horizon, her longtime boyfriend Len Kaysen completing Air Force flight training and was commandeered for duty in Vietnam. As time passed, it came as no surprise to the pianist that Jan served notice and would be leaving. Gary was reluctant with the transition. A new era was exhibited at the Holiday Inn West in Pirates Cove, an expansion to the inn having been fulfilled with an 81-room complement and the addition of suites. A search for Jan's replacement having been promulgated, an attractive folk singing talent, Carol Boyd, auditioning with an array of exquisite vocal selections augmented with her 12-string guitar. With the loss of Jan and the advent of Carol, another requirement was necessary: the procurement of a drummer. Gary was lamenting. He was back in the band business, having journeyed this road before at Bob and Jerry's Apartment Key Club, witnessing 2 expansions and the demise of business. To his surprise, the Pirates Cove maintained its level of capacity, in defiance to the addition of a new Hilton, Sheraton, and Ramada Inn on the once secluded South Meridian Avenue. Carol attracting her own following, delivering a moderate style of vocal conveyance, Gary noticing the difference between Carol and Jan in their musical adroitness, Carol having to rehearse, Gary arranging to meet with her several afternoons on a regular basis to go over new material. On occasion the two would take the time to play Request, the pianist introduced to George Gruby, and his younger lady friend Jimmy Joe. Gary was aware that George was the owner of the Gruby advertisement agency that did advertisements and bookings for most of the movie theaters, and Spring Lake, and Wedgwood Village amusement parks. He also became aware that Jimmy Joe wasn't George's wife, but appropriately her favorite song was "The Sounds of Silence." As the months progressed, the past recollections of a Jan Lahan haunted the chambered abode of the Pirate Cove. A silent apparition for her return must have found an essence of transport. Gary, not having visited with Jan in months, noticing one evening she had entered, and was immersed in a conversation with Herb, the pianist, could tell from a distance that she had a desire to return to the Cove, and unfortunately so could Carol.